begin this hour with breaking news just into CNN. The Georgia prosecutor leading the state's election interference case against President-elect Donald Trump is now disqualified. CNN's Caitlin Polance is here with more. Caitlin, what can you tell us about this? This is just coming in the last several minutes. This is a big development.
A big development, and a big development that Donald Trump has wanted for a long time. That case against him in Georgia, the criminal case where it's accusing him and several others of a racketeering conspiracy related to the 2020 election, it's already been paused. Now it's not even backburnered. This is a case that will be dead in the water because the Georgia Court of Appeals is now saying that Fani Willis, the leader of the prosecution against Donald Trump, the district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia, she should be disqualified from being able to bring that case. The Georgia Court of Appeals is saying that it's a significant appearance of impropriety caused by the conduct of a public prosecutor. That is Willis, how she behaved, how she was speaking about the case, about Trump publicly, about how she was having a relationship with the top prosecutor that was concealed in this, a man named Nathan Wade. All of that, previously, the trial level judge had looked at and said, Fani Willis can stay on this case. We're not dismissing the indictment. But the Court of Appeals is now taking another look and saying, no, the trial judge was wrong. Fani Willis should be disqualified from continuing to lead this case. It would be a long process, or it will be a long process, to replace her, which is why I say this case is dead in the water now without Fani Willis, the person who was leading this case against Donald Trump in Fulton County. And just to keep tabs on how many cases there are against Donald Trump criminally, the other two in federal court, January 6th, and classified documents, those are dismissed. And then the additional case in New York City where he was set to be sentenced, that sentencing is now not happening. So as Donald Trump enters the presidency, each of these courts that is handling a criminal case is essentially removing that issue from him to have to deal with in any period of time in the near future.
All right, Caitlin Polance, thanks for
I'm very happy President Trump is going to be our next president. But I have great news for MAGA and for America and for the rule of law. Fani Willis has been removed as prosecutor in the case against President Trump. That ridiculous Georgia case.
Sham.
Where Fani Willis brought these frivolous RICO charges against Trump. She's been removed by the Georgia Appellate Court. She's been kicked off the case. She is no longer involved in the case. You know what that tells you? It tells you that the rule of law will eventually prevail. Fani Willis filed those charges against Trump for political reasons. She met with the White House officials, and I will tell you right now, give me a chance to investigate Fani Willis, and I want her to confess that she was motivated to bring these ridiculous charges against Trump by the White House. Every Democrat tried to stop President Trump from running for office. They failed. President Trump is now our next president. And there's going to be price to pay for those who participated in election interference, for those who basically filed frivolous lawsuits, for those who created frivolous charges. Do you hear me, Liz Cheney? Do you hear me, Letitia James? Do you hear me, Alvin Bragg? Do you hear me, Jack Smith? You better lawyer up right now.
Because you're going to have to put your hands behind your backs. You have to be held accountable. Got to be held accountable. Oh, it feels good to be on the winning side.
God bless America. God bless President Trump. God bless you.
Isn't it interesting when we got a bunch of African-American DAs, now we need daddy to tell us what to do? They can keep looking. I'm not interested in them looking. They can look. I'm sorry they pissed off. Justice is now actually blind. Lady Justice is blind. Everybody can get it.
It's time to come get this race-baiting criminal. Can't go to the church crying now. Can't go to the church crying now. Oh, yeah. They got to come get you now. You got to put your hands behind your back. Oh, yes.
One of the other things I did was I did open records for the White House access, and we had records that Ms. Willis and the mayor of Atlanta were at meeting with the vice president.
Okay, and so this is the access history. How does that work? The White House keeps records of anybody that comes in and has any kind of official meeting, for sure?
Yes, and my understanding is it's highly regulated who can access the White House, and so you have to apply in person or apply ahead of time, and then they give you a time when you make the appointment, and they give you a time when you're allowed to be in and when you have to be out by, and they track you. And I mean, that makes sense. They don't want anybody lingering in the White House, but they keep that. And so they're called WAVE records, I believe is what they're called, and I'm not sure what that's an acronym for, but they're publicly available. They're open records.
And this record that's shown on the screen shows Fani Willis was a visitor with V. POTUS. I presume that's Vice President of the United States?
Yes, it was.
And what was the date of that back in, was that February sometime of 23?
February 28, 2023.
Is that before the indictment?
Yes.
Okay. Any further explanation of why Ms. Willis was meeting with the Vice President of the United States?
No. I know Dexter Bonds, and I believe that's the same one that I think it's Dixon, the mayor of Atlanta, was also there.
Okay. We're going to take a short break. We've been going at this for a while. Let's take a somewhere between 5 and 10 minute recess, and we'll be back.
Liberal District Attorney Fani Willis, who went after Donald Trump in Georgia, just got kicked off the case. Georgia's Court of Appeals has just disqualified her from prosecuting the 2020 election case against Donald Trump and his co-defendants. They are citing conflict of interest. Well, no kidding. The court began looking into whether Willis should continue the case after that romantic relationship with the ex-prosecutor Nathan Wade came to light. The court said this: while we recognize that an appearance of impropriety generally is not enough to support disqualification, this is the rare case in which disqualification is mandated and no other remedy will suffice to restore public confidence in the integrity of these proceedings. Yeah, well, she put him there. He was making more than anybody else on the staff, and his resume didn't really match up what his job was going to be to go after Trump. There's that. The court did not outright, though, dismiss this case. It will now be up to the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia to find another prosecutor to take over the case and decide whether to pursue it. That process could be delayed if Fani Willis decides to appeal to the state Supreme Court and tries to get back on the case. President-elect Trump told Fox moments ago, quote, "Whole case has been a disgrace to justice, and that should not be allowed to go any further."
That's it. It's over. It is over. It's done. We told you what this was from the beginning. Should have never been bought, man. Now, these people need to be held accountable. I'm just waiting for the go in the towel and then that B-roll footage, breaking news of them walking, her lover, all of them, with their hands behind their back in handcuffs. Yeah. I'm just waiting for that camera, that breaking news camera footage. Pretty sure we're all waiting for it.
Bill Holloway, former assistant district attorney, former Georgia police officer, and legal advisor to Georgia's Sheriff's Department. So you know that state, you know its legal system. Fani Willis, talk to me about what they saw outside of what we all knew.
Well, Harris, the statement or the part of the opinion that you referenced in the lead regarding there's no other remedy that will suffice is, I think, the very best and most important language in this opinion, because the appearance of impropriety, as the courts note, is oftentimes not enough. But this is the case because, look, this is the one that has the elected district attorney, taking lots of taxpayer money, funneling it to her admitted paramour, and then benefiting from that financial arrangement by virtue of all the romantic trips and the getaways and all of those things. So if it's not a direct kickback, it certainly has the smell of potentially a kickback. And her testimony, of course, they said had the odor of mendacity, which means that nobody believed her testimony when she tried to explain this. But it's more than the conflict of interest with Nathan Wade. This is also about what we call forensic misconduct. There's out-of-court statements where Ms. Willis goes into the well of a local church here in Fulton County, Georgia, which is full of potential voters and full of potential jurors, by the way, I might add, and she maligns and impugns the various defendants out in a very public way. Prosecutors are not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to try their case, so to speak, on the courthouse steps, nor in the well of a church. This is something that was actually predicted. I predicted this outcome. She can appeal it to the Georgia Supreme Court, but I've got news for her. The Georgia Supreme Court is not going to take this case. It's discretionary. They don't have to do it, and they won't. They are going to affirm the Court of Appeals, and this case is going to be effectively over because the Prosecuting Attorney's Council of Georgia is not going to be able to find another DA if they wanted to, Harris, that wants to take this monstrosity.
Is that the only issue with this case? Because, you know, that can change. People can come in and out of those jobs and so on and so forth. Is there anything else inherently true about this case that would get it dismissed at this point?
The former President-elect Trump, has asked the Court of Appeals to dismiss the case. And of course, in this opinion, they said, look, this is not, this doesn't rise to the level of dismissal. That's a separate issue. Now, there's other requests being made of the courts on the grounds of presidential immunity and that sort of thing. But this effectively kills the case, Harris. It's an orphan indictment. It's now going to be indictment without a prosecutor. And the Prosecuting Attorney's Council is not going to find any other DA that wants this. Look, they'd have to shut down their whole office, and they'd have to, just for this case, basically shut down all of their operations. They would have to redo everything that she did and try to fix the problems that she created. It's not going to happen.
All right. I want to
joins us now. So, is he right? Is it dead? Almost dead.
I think it might be in approaching that zombie state of living but dead. It depends on what the new prosecutor does, because even though this decision was based on the conduct of Willis herself, any new prosecutor would have to decide whether and what to prosecute. In my view, this RICO case against the president has been hopelessly flawed from the beginning. It's almost a RICO version of 6 Degrees from Kevin Bacon. I mean, they're sort of tying all these individuals to Trump with very little connections that most of us can see. I've never seen a RICO case like that. So many prosecutors might seriously want this cup to pass from their lips and to say, we're not interested here. But the immediate impact of this decision is overwhelming in terms of Willis herself. I mean, this court is basically saying that these cases are not supposed to be sort of vanity projects. You know, you were told by the lower court that you created this appearance of impropriety. And the question for the court is why you didn't remove yourself. Many of us at the time said that most prosecutors would have seen that their continuation of the case was harming the case and harming the public interest. Willis simply refused to give up the ghost and insisted she wanted to be the lead in this.
From a legal standpoint, was she wrong to bring the case, or was she wrong to package it with 14, 16, 18 other people?
She was wrong to bring the case against Trump. You know, there are some viable claims here. You know, she charged some people with unlawful entry or access to restricted areas. Those are not particularly serious crimes, but they are crimes. She was wrong to go after Trump on this basis. She clearly wanted to engage in lawfare, and that's one of the reasons why she wouldn't give up the case. You know, when this issue was first raised, many of us wrote at the time that the correct move is to remove yourself. You selected a former lover as the lead counsel that violated, in my view, core ethical requirements. He was ultimately disqualified by the court. But Judge McCaffrey gave her a chance to do the right thing. He said, look, your conduct is wrong here, and you can remove yourself. Well, he was talking to the wrong person. She had no interest in removing herself. I mean, lawfare is only valuable if you're the lead warrior, and she was not going to give up that position.
But Jonathan, would the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity have made this moot anyway?
It might have, Dana. I mean, the thing is, this case, I think, would have collapsed by its own weight. And that's the reason I would be surprised if an independent prosecutor looked at this and decided to continue it against Trump. But if they did, they're facing a world of problems here. I mean, first of all, the RICO theory itself barely holds together, but also the evidence that you're relying on does seem to trip the wire on that recent case that you referenced. That some of what she has cited occurred obviously during Trump's first term and relies on evidence that is derived from the White House. So all of that creates a new level of challenges.
Thanks, Jonathan. It's some breaking news.
Gotta love breaking news in the morning.
That's right. We had a lot of it today.
Thank you so much.